Today I'll show you how I created this planter in the front of my home. Walking closer to the planter, you'll see that in fact the planter is not floating, but it's hanging suspended by some very small diameter, high tensile strength wire. The wire's holding the planter up at 4 points on the planter. This side is hung already. I've yet to hang up a planter I've built for the other side of the home entryway. Beginning with the planter, you'll see that I've created a wood box from 1x material and some 2x4 material. The wood used here was treated. I then primed it and painted it. The construction was rather simple, mostly square cuts here. And after cutting the wood, it's screwed together. The screw holes were covered with some putty material, so the screws are no longer visible. And then the entire surface was prepped and painted. Notice here, along the edges of the planter, I've left room for drainage. Water will be able to flow out. I'll also show you how I add some shower liner. This is heavy duty, thick plastic on the inside of the planter in order to prevent water damage. These boxes should last a very long time. I've made sure to use high quality material. The box here, I have yet to put in some holes in the hardware in order to hang the planter from the overhanging roof here. But I'll be doing that shortly. On the overhanging roof, I've drilled in some hooks already. I have to add some more hooks, 2 more on the other end, in order to accommodate hanging of the planter. What I'm duplicating is the setup you see here. It's 4 hooks for 4 different lines hanging the suspended planter. So I'll continue my work over here, pre-drill and put in my hooks. Hooks are now in the rafters as necessary. I've readied some wire to be able to suspend the planter from the hooks. This hardware is all stainless steel, so it should not have problems with oxidizing even after many years. You'll see that I crimped on an eye onto the hook here, and the other end is ready to attach to the hooks on the ceiling. Okay, appropriate holes are drilled now into the planter. I can insert into these holes the prepared wire hangers. I'll put those through the appropriate holes and use some large washers on the other end. The planter has now been hung with the hook and wires on 4 corners. On the other side of the hooks down here, I have washers and nuts. The next step now is to line the interior of the planter with the thick shower material. I'll begin by cutting the shower material to fit the bottom of the planter here, and then we'll staple the material into place. Okay, I've cut the plastic material down to size. We've laid the plastic material in the bottom of the planter, and we'll now begin stapling into place. I'm using a battery-powered stapler. The goal of using plastic in this planter is to mitigate any kind of rotting of the wood and make this planter last a lot longer. The plastic is now stapled into the bottom of the planter. I'm going to do the same for the sides of the planter, beginning by cutting the plastic material to the correct dimension to fit around the sides of the planter. In placing the plastic on the bottom of the planter, you can see that I kept open the drain along the sides of the planter for water to go through. Later I'll add some rocks in here as well as some clay material in order to allow for drainage but keep the soil from falling out of the planter. Plastic liner now fills the entire box along the sides and the bottom of our planter. What I'll do now is fill up the bottom of the planter with some rock. The rock will keep the soil in the planter but allow the water to flow out through the slits along the sides of the planter. The planter has now been filled with some rock. The rock will allow water to drain from the bottom of the planter. I'll now add some dirt into the planter, not too much. I'll add enough to fill maybe a quarter of the way, and then I'll be able to do some leveling of the planter by loosening the bolts at the bottom of the planter, as well as perhaps even altering of the hooks from the roof here. The planter has been filled with some dirt. The weight is spread evenly enough to allow me to now level the planter in both directions, in this direction as well as in the perpendicular direction. I can adjust the levelness of the planter by loosening and tightening of the nuts on these bolts at the bottom of the planter, as well as adjusting the hooks hanging from the roof. The planter's been leveled, so what I will now do is put in my plants. This is the final product. Both planters are now suspended. The intent of this project was to make it appear as though the planters were floating in mid-air, magically, at least from the road. This does seem as though the project has worked out that way. Upon closer inspection though, one does see that wire holds the planters up. The planters should last a long time. The wires are all stainless steel, as well as all the other hardware. The wood is primed, painted, also pressure treated. Additionally, plastic lines the inside of the planter to keep wood rot at bay. The plants look great. These are snake plants. They should fill in over the coming years. I'm happy with the final product, and hope you enjoy.